Hey, welcome everybody, and welcome Peter. One of the things we do at RedBalloon is we want businesses to be thriving, not only in the way that they're hiring, and obviously that's where RedBalloon comes in, but also in the way that they're building their culture, how executives are kind of interacting with themselves or each other, and how they're interacting with their employees, because a healthy work environment is a profitable work environment and one that's joyful. It's way more fun for everybody when people are getting along, when they're understanding how to interact with each other, when they're building each other up. And so I thought it'd be helpful to have a conversation with Peter. Peter, maybe Peter, talk a little bit about what you do and the organization you're representing.
Yeah, man.
And then we'll kind of dive into a couple of things that I find helpful in building culture. And I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts.
Excited to chat today, man. A quick background on me: married 20 years, 4 kids, homeschool family, so we're nuts. Follower of Jesus, 5-time founder, most recently founder of Whitestone Coaching, where we coach business leaders on how to lead themselves and their organization
Awesome.
in a way that allows them to unlock latent potential, profitability, and becoming a leader that people want to follow and not just have to follow because they're
Right.
reporting to work.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. And you work with leaders all over the country, or do you really
Mhm.
focus on kind of California?
All over.
Okay, that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, great. Well, hey, let's jump into this topic. So, I have, I'll hit one of the things that I've always found helpful in building a healthy work environment. And then I'd love your interactions on that. And then maybe we can throw it over to you to talk about some of the things that you push on. When I'm working with a company, when I've led companies as a CEO in the past, or when I'm working with CEOs who are looking to build a strong culture, one of the things I really push on is no gossip in the workplace. And what that means is I want to see a workplace culture where people have each other's backs, and you don't have to be constantly, looking over your shoulder, wondering who is going to be stabbing you in the back or talking behind your back. And so what that looks like is when people come in my office and say, hey, Andrew, you as the CEO, you're not doing a very good job. We're missing this or that. I might give that person a raise because I want them to give me that feedback. I know I have
Yeah.
blind spots. That's a good thing, right? But if they come in and say, so-and-so on my team or on a different team is doing a terrible job, my first question will be, well, have you talked to them first? Have you given them an opportunity to tell their side of the story? And if the answer is no, I'll either say, well, then you might be fired because I don't want that in my workplace, or I'll go grab that person and let's the three of us have a very awkward conversation right now and just get to the bottom of this. And it is amazing how quickly people are like, oh, I will never do that again because I'd like to avoid that awkward conversation. And then all of a sudden you have this collegial atmosphere in the business where people will just have direct conversations with each other, learn from each other, give each other the benefit of the doubt, knowing that they're not going to go and talk behind that person's back because there's a pretty high penalty associated with that. So anyway, that's one of the things I've seen. I don't know if that is part of what you talk to people about or if you've experienced that in your coaching.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, we have a phrase that is go to the source. And
Yeah.
so, if same for you, for me, if someone's bringing something to me, I'm like, well, what did they say when you talk to them about it?
Hmm.
And then they're like, wait, what? I'm like, I assumed you talked to him or her about it. And
Right.
they're like, well, no. But like, I'm happy to be a sounding board to help you to like formulate how to bring it to this person, but you will be bringing this to this person. We're not going to talk about it here. And just like we tell our kids, we tell the employees that if you wouldn't say it to their face, let's not talk about it at all.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
those sorts of like guardrails, I think, are really, really important. So just as you are fostering this environment where we are open and frank and kind with our communication, gossip is just not there. And so we call it being the firewall, right? So you don't have that just
Yeah.
bounce right back to them versus being the conduit and creating this environment where you allow this to happen
Mm.
and continue to happen, right? Because now you're just like you're letting that gossip fester and you're actually encouraging it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I always say, look, you shouldn't be even talking about it unless you're talking to someone who's either part of the problem or part of the solution. So
Hmm.
sometimes you do need to go to your boss. You need to say, hey, how do I handle this situation? But you're still planning on going and talking to that person, which is very different than I just want to talk behind their back. So they're either part of the problem or part of the solution. And if you kind of have that framework, I like the way that you talked about it with the guardrails, with the having a firewall rather than a conduit. That just
Yeah.
builds a really healthy culture. When you're working with executives and trying to help them understand themselves and be a better leader, what are some of the things you push on and help encourage them in your coaching process?
Yeah. So one of the tools that's really, really simple called Support Challenge. It's just so interesting how this impacts people because what has happened in your employment before you became an employer and in your leadership before you became a leader is likely what was modeled to you is poor challenge. So
Hmm.
somebody bringing something to you to help you to do a better job, and they see something in you that you don't see in yourself. Typically, challenge the way it was modeled to us is something that was aggressive, that was domineering, that was unpleasant, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of times, especially if you're a kind leader, you're like, I don't want to be anything like that. And so if Bob was like that in your past, you're like, I don't want to be nothing like Bob. And so you overcorrect. And then you don't even know how to bring effective challenge to help your employees, your team be better. And so one of the things that when we teach liberation, which is calibrated support and challenge to each person that's on your team in order to bring them the tools and the resources that they need, but also to help them like keep them accountable and
Yeah.
help prop them up because you see something in them that they don't see in themselves, or they're just not up to snuff, right? And so one of the things that we teach our leaders is like, hey, you need to be a liberating leader. And one, you liberate yourself because you're maybe micromanaging or you're letting things slide and it's impacting the way that you operate. But also you're liberating them because you see something in them they don't see in themselves and you want them to do better.
Yeah, I love that because if as a leader, as a CEO or a manager, if you're trying to make your employees a better version of themselves, not only are they going to be better employees who are going to get more done and be more profitable for your business, but it actually is good for you. It's good for you as a person. It's kind of the way that God built the world. When you seek to bless other people and try and make them a better version of themselves, when you deal with things in their lives, then all of a sudden they are in a position where they're doing better, but also you're doing better because you actually leaned in and cared about them.
You got it, man. You got it.
Yeah,
And everybody wants, they may not have this terminology, but everybody wants a leader that's for them, a leader that's
right.
fighting for them. And part of fighting for them is calling them up, right? And being like,
Yep.
hey, Andrew, I know you can do better. Let me
Yeah.
give you the tools, let me help you, but you're gonna do better because it's up to you. This is in your purview, this is your responsibility. And so let's work together to help you level up.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you see some of the most successful podcasts out there, people who are really just challenging people to be better, to push themselves, et cetera. So,
Mhm.
well, okay, we're gonna keep going here. We're gonna kind of call an audible here. We're gonna riff back and forth because I'm gonna push on another thing that I find helpful for building culture, and then I'm gonna shoot it back to you.
Okay.
One of the things that I love to do is I encourage leaders, employees, everybody to focus on blessing others. When you
Mhm.
have an exterior focus, when you're looking outside of yourself, it's amazing how much better your work is when you're able to put yourself in your customer's shoes, in your employee's shoes, in your shareholder's shoes, in your boss's shoes. When you are not focused on how do I bless myself the most, how do I do the most for myself, but how do I bless others, it is amazing how much more you're going to enjoy work. Gallup has this poll, and they say that something like 67% of all employees in America today are either disengaged or actively disengaged because
Mhm.
they just don't enjoy their work. And I think a lot of that is they're so focused on themselves. And I think our culture all around us is just so me focused that you actually, it might feel good for a minute, but then all of a sudden you realize I am not joyful. I'm not enjoying my work. So that's one of the things I encourage leaders. When you are focused on others and not yourself, you're going to have a better environment and you're going to have more fun at work.
I love that, man. I love that. And so is the question how to do that or
Yeah,
how to
I would
bless more?
love to. Yeah, I would say if you're working with a leader and you realize they're pretty obsessed with themselves, like how do you work through that with someone?
Yeah. Here's what's interesting, man, is that, early on in your career and in your leadership, it's all about revenue and driving dollars. And money's
That's right.
important. Like, don't get me wrong. One of my favorite Zig Ziglar quotes is like, money isn't the most important thing in life, but it's relatively close to air. It was something like that, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
it's like you need it, right? It's like the
Yeah,
lifeblood. If you don't have it,
that's right.
you can't be blessing anybody. And so I think that early on, that's the goal, and then we kind of lose sight. And the reason we lose sight of what's even more important is because we don't have a large enough vision. And so
Yeah.
running into leaders daily that they don't even know why they're doing the thing anymore. And
Yeah.
so for
Interesting.
me, and the advice to the leaders, like you need to have a large enough and clear enough vision that you can get excited about. But not just that, don't do that and put it on the shelf. You need to revisit it often, especially when you're in like the downswings, because then you're reminded of like, oh, no, no, this is why we're doing the thing. This is why we're killing ourselves day and night working on this project, is because we have this large enough vision that's outside of ourselves. And
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
being outside of yourself is the blessing, right? It's like, hey, we want our employees to have an awesome work environment. We want our clients to do X, Y, and Z. We want to deliver a product that's going to make people's lives better. Like those are the parts, those are the blessings outside of yourself that you have to be tied to. Because really, in the end, and this sounds like a privileged thing to say, but I don't think so, is like it's not just about the money. The money is really, really, I mean, it's one of these things where there are diminishing returns. And talking about Gallup polls and studies like that, it's like after a certain amount, it really doesn't make that much of an impact on you anymore. Like once your
Okay.
like livelihood's covered, right? We don't want you being out on the street, but once your livelihood's covered, there's a diminishing return there, right? It's like when you
Yep.
buy something and you put it on the shelf, well then, that dopamine hit is less and less and less until it's just non-existent anymore, just part of what you're doing. But like just like the best stories or the best experiences or the best trips that you've been on, the older they get, they're like a bottle of fine wine, right? They get better
Yeah.
and better. And so that's what the blessings are, as you look back on how you treated your employees and how you blessed them and your customers. And those stories, they get sweeter and sweeter for them and for you.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and that's just how people are built. If you just are focused on yourself, and there are people who, what's the? I think it's J.P. Morgan. They said, how much money you need, and he's like, just a little bit more. But but that doesn't necessarily bring you happiness, right? And there's lots of people who say that. And look, I'm Red Balloon. We're trying to do something great in our culture. We're trying to bring freedom to the workplace, but I'm still a capitalist, right? I'm not
Hmm.
opposed to making money. That's a good thing.
Me too.
So.
Yes.
That's really cool. Okay, so when you start working with leaders, one of the things that I found is are you finding that leaders are always learning? Are they constantly trying to make a better version of themselves, or do you find that like the money, like at some point it's like, well, I know all the things I need, and I'm good to go.
The best leaders are always learning. They're always reading. I mean, the world is constantly changing, man. The landscape in
Right.
every sector is changing. Like if Red Balloon's probably on iteration 575, right? It's like
For
if
sure.
you
Yeah.
guys were still just running it the way that you thought you were going to run it in the beginning, you'd be out of business. And so
Yep.
like you've got to constantly be improving. And so like for us to be good at our job, whatever that job is not just like maintaining the status quo. It's like constantly learning and reading and keeping an eye on like what's happening in the marketplace, what's happening in industry, what new technology is coming out. Like that needs to be part of it. If you're not growing, you're dying, which is the phrase that we all know, right?
Yep.
However, the folks that are having a hard time digging in and learning more about where they're leading, those are the folks that are probably in the wrong seat, or they're maybe even
Hmm.
on the wrong bus. Because to me, a phrase that we use is unconscious competence. It's something that you were put on this earth to do. Like you're
Hmm.
unconsciously competent. You were
I
it's
like that.
woven into your DNA. You were put on this earth to do it. And those things you don't have to pay me to learn about. Those things you don't
Yeah.
have to remind
Right.
me, hey Peter, you need to dig in on X, Y, or Z. You don't need to tell me because I'm already doing it, because I'm excited about
Yeah.
it. And
Right.
so if you're having a hard time digging in and learning and improving in your craft, I would zoom out and be like, man, am I in the wrong trade? Am I in the wrong
Hmm.
business? Am I doing the wrong thing? Because you should have a moderate level of excitability. Is it fun all the time? Absolutely not. But it should be fun part of the time, and you should be excited to learn more about
Yeah, I love that moderate level of excitability. Yeah, you would hope, like, do you have a pulse? Are you really, is there anything you get excited about anymore like that?
it.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things when you start that you see when you jump in with a business and you're trying to help coach a leader? What's another big one that you're running into quite a bit?
Dude, and this is not just in business leadership. I think this is in life. I think there are a lot of folks that are running around out there, they don't know who they are. And they're
Yeah.
having like an identity crisis, and they don't even know what their superpowers are. And so when I'm sitting down with a leader and they're talking about things, it's like, man, you're trying to have your folks level up when you haven't even done the thing. And you haven't done the thing
Yeah.
because you don't know who
Right.
you are.
Yep.
If you like, I'll ask a leader like, "Hey, what are you excited about?" They're not really sure. Or, "Hey, what are you really, really good at?" I don't really know. And it's like, dude, you got to start there. And so recently, we had a client, and he was talking about all these businesses he's bounced around on, and he's had a good level of success, but he's just really still extremely unhappy. And he's trying to make a decision on this business idea or that one. And it became very clear to me that he wasn't really sure which one to chase because he wasn't excited about either one. And he wasn't excited about either one because he didn't even know what he wanted to do.
Hmm.
Vision was low, didn't know his identity, wasn't sure on his superpowers. And so I think running into leaders that are just, they're not self aware. They've
Yep.
been in the weeds so long that they don't even know who they are anymore. And so zooming out and doing the work to really figure out like, man, what did I used to get excited about? What did I used to dig in on
Interesting.
that you didn't have to tell me
Yeah.
to dig in on like we talked about? Like that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And I see that with, I've got 5 kids, and obviously if you can get them, if you can help them realize what they're excited about, what they're really good at. I've got a son who, played a lot of different sports, and all of a sudden, we helped him realize that like you do like to run, maybe you should focus on that. And as he started to focus on it, you can just see, the pleasure that he gets from doing that is just overwhelming compared to everything else. So I hadn't thought about it in the business context, but you're absolutely right. Working with a leader to help them really understand who they are, what they're excited about, what they're fired up about,
Yeah.
is amazing. That's really helpful.
Well, dude, think about your son in the running. Like there's a lot less friction there.
Yeah,
And so if it's
correct.
something that you're actually good at and you're excited about, oh, dude, like stuff starts firing, right? You don't have to like remind him all the time to do the thing that he needs to do because he's just going to do it because there's a lot less friction there.
Yeah, that's amazing. Peter, I don't want to keep you too long. I know your time is valuable. What does it look like for you to start working for a business? Let's say we've got there's many thousands of businesses on RedBalloon, and there's a leader out there that says, man, it sounds like Peter's talking to me, and I could
Hmm.
use some help to kind of understand who I am, and how do I lead my team better? How do I succeed and bring joy back to the work that I have to do? What does it look like for someone to start working with you?
Yeah, I mean, we'll first hop on a call just to make sure that we're a good fit. Like, I'm not a
Yeah.
fit for everybody. You may not like me, or I may not like you. But more so, like, we're just making sure like you're at the right place to be to be coached. And so we'll do a discovery call, understanding more what your problems are and the solutions that you're considering, and to see if I can help pour some jet fuel on those solutions. So we'll have a call like that, and then we'll craft a kind of a game plan going forward. I do one-on-ones and group coaching. What's fun for me is like not only being able to speak life into people and help them like remove impediments and ceilings that have been there for a while, but also to put them around other leaders that are trying to do the same.
Yeah.
Because dude, you get a bunch of leaders in the room that are all varying degrees of success, whether that's financial or otherwise, monetary or otherwise, and they're all just trying to level up. Man, the energy in that room is
Yeah.
powerful. And so we do a lot of those groups virtually, and just the unlock that happens with each other is just, it's powerful.
That's amazing. That's really cool, and I know a lot of businesses that, they need that little. I like the jet fuel analogy. They just need something to let's get going. Let's go to the next level. How do people get in touch with you? How do they find out more?
Yeah, if it's okay, man, I've got a free download that
Oh, that'd be
that
great.
I'd love to offer your audience, man. So they can just text the word yoked, YOKED, to 55444. And they'll get the free download there. We've got an online community called Yoked as well. That's from Matthew 11, that
Yep.
they can get in touch with, and just go to
Not like
whitestonecoach.com.
yoked, like they were working out a lot, but like, I mean,
That's
because I'm
why.
yoked, but
That's why I like the word, because like
yeah,
yoked
right.
in the secular vernacular is powerful, but then when you think about what it really means, it's even more
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so yeah, so they can text that number, get the free download. That'll
Oh,
put them in
awesome.
touch with me. Um, and then if they go to whitestonecoach.com, they can schedule a call. Calls are free, and I love chatting and meeting new business leaders. So they can hop on
Yeah, it's
there,
amazing.
and we can chat.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
cool. Well, hey, for all the businesses that are out there listening, look, we need to all be pushing ourselves. We need to be pushing each other too, right? That's part of the reason I love these conversations, because I know I have a lot to learn. and love learning from people like Peter. We're all striving to make our businesses better and be in a position where we can bless our employees, bless our customers, bless our shareholders, and really have a more joyful version of ourselves and being successful at work. I hope you found this conversation helpful. I know I have, and I hope that everyone out there will use their time and energy to bless other people. Again, this is Andrew from redballoon.work. I hope you have an amazing day.